Okay, so we had a little intermission for a tornado warning, but back to this sheet. Weight-based doses are calculated for these patients, so it's important that we know their accurate weight, and that's one of the reasons that we've asked EMS to weigh them as they come in, so that we can do this calculation properly. So you're going to use the weight in kilograms, and then it's 0.9 milligrams per kilogram. That's the dose. And then we got to figure out what the waste is. The bottle has 100 in it. So for our patient, we're going to give them 90 mils or 90 milligrams. And so that means we have 10 for waste. So when we set the pump up, we're going to take out that 10 waste. And then we go back to this same, as you can see, the same numbers used for a lot of the calculations. This 90 times 0.1 is their bolus dose. And the bolus is given over 1 minute. Then you take the 90 minus the bolus dose, and that's your infusion dose. And if you look closely down here at the bottom, see if we can make it so Missy can see that. It says volume to be infused for pump, and then infusion over 1 minute for the bolus. And then this one says infusion rate. Is that correct, Missy?
Yep, and it says
I'm trying to read it through the back here.
mLs per hour for pump.
And then there's some hints here. Remember that this is a critical drug, so you have to have a second nurse check, and you should have them document in Cerner that they have checked for you. Okay. Before I get to the end, so I don't forget this is how you document, but it is okay to go ahead and get the infusion going because we know minutes matter in this case. So Allie, our critical care pharmacist, has made this to help you document because it is a challenge in Cerner. So we don't want you to be under the pressure of trying to get it started and document. So it's okay. Document after you get it started. So here's how we mix it. In your kit, there's a transfer device. You're going to flip these lids off. And remember, these are just considered clean. It's not sterile. So we need to take an alcohol wipe and scrub them for the 15 seconds that you're supposed to do it. We have time-lapse photography here, so that was 15 seconds. And then you're going to look at your transfer device. It's actually the same on both ends. One side is a small opening and one side's a big opening. So it doesn't matter which one you uncap first. But what you want to think about when you're mixing the diluent with the TPA, by the way, this is baking powder from Margie's home. It's not really TPA. I don't have $10,000 in my education budget. So you want to think about what's going to happen if you turn the bottle with fluid in it upside down with this, and you're going to get fluid everywhere. So stick this one in the fluid, and then take the clouds. This one also has a bigger marking place for the insertion, so it's also easier to hit the target. You put the clouds over the water, and then you turn it over and make it rain. So if this really had water in it, it would be draining down into this bottle. You should not shake it. I have seen some people shaking it. Even some people who should know better have been shaking it. So you really don't. You just want to swirl it. Because if it gets foamy, then it's going to be a lot more difficult to get the dosing accurate. So once you get that all together, I have another one here. That's an example. So here's one with the fluid in it. And one of the things that we do is we mark on here, there's labels in your folder, how much drug is in this bottle. The reason for that is, although we always take it out, not all hospitals do. It is the standard, it is the best practice. However, some hospitals don't, and that way, if we're sending them by ALS ambulance or by aircraft, the person that's finishing this infusion for us knows that the whole bottle needs to go in and not just leave the waste part in there. So those labels, like I said, are in the folder. I think Allie made those for us. Then if we look over here, when you put your tubing in, this window, you need to squeeze this so you get a little bit of fluid down here and then open your window. If you do it the other way, sometimes the window gets wet and then it doesn't work very well. And the window's purpose is to let air into the bottle so the fluid will actually come out. So I squeeze that and I prime it all the way down past this first port, which is a needleless port. And usually I'll get it down into this area and then pinch this. Because what we need to do is remove the waste now. You actually can remove it from the bottle, but it's a lot safer and it's needleless if you do it this way. Now on this guy, we only need to take out 10 because he's big, but you might need more than one big syringe. And again, you're going to take your alcohol and cleanse the port for 15 seconds. You know, some of these patients have other problems. Like we had recently a guy that had a artificial valve, and just not cleaning this might be the source of the bacterial endocarditis that he got after he was here. So you're going to put this on. Keep this pinched so that you know you're getting the fluid from up here, and pull out your 10 cc's. Of course, it would get in the way. And sometimes you get a little air, that's all right. You could just unhook, put it up. Make sure you're right on your 10 cc's. If you get a little bit more though, which it looks like I did, then you have all of this space in the tubing that you can just squirt some of that back in, so you don't lose any of your alteplase that way. Then you take it off, and then you're going to prime the rest of your tubing. Make sure you don't have air in your line. And then Missy and I are going to switch, and I'm going to take the camera and she's going to program this so that you can see it. She's way better at programming it than I am. There we go. Okay, let me go ahead and put it in. Tilted a bit. All right. Now I'm going to take the camera.
Okay. So it's a new patient, so we're going to say yes. It's an adult. So we're in channel A. We know it's a drug. So then we're going to scroll down until we find alteplase. We're going to select that. We know we're using it for the stroke. So it says milligram and ml. That's what we're using. And it gives you a little clinical advisory to use care and avoid invasive procedures, which we are all well aware of. So we know our drug amount. We're going to go reference back into this. So we know that our diluent amount, our drug amount is the 90. And the volume is also 90. Those are the same. So then you're going to hit next. So we know our volume to be infused down here is 90. And we know that our rate, mLs per hour, is 81. That also gives us a dose of 81. So we still need to put our bolus in. So we're going to hit our bolus. And we know that our bolus dose is 9. And we want it to go over 1 minute. So we're going to do the duration. And we're going to type in 1. And once we have that all programmed, we're going to hit start. So as you see it, it's going to use it's going to go through the bolus first. And then once the bolus is through, it will switch over to the 81.
And while this is going, let me just remind you that any decline in the patient's neurostatus, headache, vomiting, should warrant calling the doctor and shutting that TPI off even before you make the call or go get the doctor. Because they probably need a stat head CT to make sure that they don't have a bleed happening. Hopefully the 1 minute will get in before the air bubble. I don't think so though.
No. Yep.
Okay, so after the 1 minute is up, this should switch to whatever your infusion dose. For us it was 81. And then what will happen is, as you get to the end of your bottle, I'm gonna let Missy do this one. You do the vital signs and the NIH every 15 minutes, right? So you're gonna get that rest of that TPA and squeeze it into the bottle. Now we haven't run it for the whole dose, so we're pretending that it was small enough that we could just put it all into the drip chamber. which should be after about 3 of your neuro checks. So every 15 minutes, 45 minutes, that bottle should be about ready. And then what you're going to do is, Missy's got lots of hands here, is add your 50cc bottle of saline on there and go ahead and scan the saline right now. We know that there's still a lot of TPA to go in the patient, right? Because from the drip chamber all the way down to the patient is about 20 cc's. So you really want to make sure you give them the entire dose. The other reason is because the surveyors will look to see if we've done that. So don't try and figure out when the TPA is really gone. Just scan it when it happens, and then I'll use the fact that we know it's going to push the saline in. The saline will push the TPA in, and also on here, when it's done, it'll say volume to be infused complete. So then you know when the TPA is totally out of the tubing and into the patient.
All right, guys, this is it for TPA administration. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments section. And if it's something that I can't answer, I'll forward it on to Margie to get you guys those answers. Probably starting tomorrow, I will leave a few kits out in the break room so you guys can practice with the kits and refer back to the video, just so you guys can get that hands-on practice. Thanks. Have a good day.